I can't have the conversation with you about a firearm if you on go just with any because somebody stepped on your toe. We have to have that conversation about conflict resolution and de-escalation. And so those are one of the areas that we saw big strides in. And gun, pro-gun, anti-gun doesn't matter. No one is saying, hey, we're okay with death and trauma. So even from the conflict resolution angle, we've seen an impact and we know that it is scalable.
I am joined by Maj Toure, founder of Black Guns Matter. Maj, thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So, could you begin by telling me a little bit about why you decided to found Black Guns Matter and what you all do?
Yeah, so in 2015, going into the 2016 national elections, what we saw was everybody, obviously, during an election cycle, everybody saying, voters registration drive. You know, for us, we were like, yo, we need a license to carry drive. So we did an event. It was way too many people. People came from Brooklyn, just all over the place. And we noticed that there was a need because some people were saying, yo, can we get our license here? And it's like, yo, you live in a different state. So we knew that there was information missing. So fast forward a bit, we said we wanted to do this in 25 cities. We said we'll do 13 cities and do $25,000. We raised the money, you know, we completely crowdsourced, and then we did the 25 cities, and we were like, okay, that's it. And everybody was like, yo, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. Fast forward a bit more. Now we're over 50 or 60 cities in, if like maybe not even more. We've raised about $280,000 to, you know, make these classes free for whoever wants to come, with now a goal of $1 million. So we do conflict resolution, firearm safety and storage, and, you know, de-escalation and political education in areas where there is the most gun control, which coincides with the most violent crime. So if we can educate people about safe and responsible firearms ownership, protect the Second Amendment, then in turn we create more of a voting bloc that is voting for more freedoms as opposed to their own restrictions.
Sure. So if I sign up for one of your classes, I walk in, not really sure what to expect,
Yep.
what am I going to hear?
You're going to get the basics of firearm safety, anatomy, what is a firearm, what are the basic parts of it, proper storage, the basic 4 rules of firearm safety, but also conflict resolution and de-escalation, as well as, you can't, the reality is a firearm is the last resort or tool to defend life. And so every single person, especially if you're a beginner, we are entry level. There is no class, no organization more entry level than us. We cater to the people that know absolutely nothing about firearms. But you're interested, you're curious, you might want to know a little bit about it. If you want to learn, come shoot potentially, and just get put on the path to safe and responsible gun ownership, as well as, again, you can't leave out that political education component, because it doesn't make sense for you to learn about this, your human right to self-defense, and then you're voting in people that want to try to take that away from you. So if you come to our class, very basic, entry level, that's what you're going to get, as well as you're going to be exposed to some of the contradictions, the political contradictions, even your own contradictions. Hey, I thought voting, get rid of the guns would make us safer, but then recognizing that, I was wrong. And that's a good thing as long as you recognize the error and then you grow from it. So these are all encompassing things. We take a very beginner but holistic approach to firearm safety and conflict resolution and political education at Black Guns Matter.
So tell me a little bit about your personal journey. I mean, so many people look at gun violence in America and their automatic reaction is, we need to ban guns.
Yeah.
Why was that not your reaction?
Because just doing the data, I mean, you got authors like Dr. John Lott, who's done tons of study. More guns in safe and responsible hands actually means less crime. And so when you're being objective and dealing with the actual statistics, you see that, if there's a chance, no weirdo is going to attempt to rape a young lady if it's a 70% chance that she has a firearm and she's trained. Rightfully so. I think that when you look at the numbers, the over the millions of defensive gun usages every year, these ain't my stats or me just making it up. These are FBI statistics. Every year, there's millions of people that use firearms to defend and protect life and the things and people that they love. So that number far outweighs the 30 to 40,000 deaths related to firearms annually, when 60% of those are suicides. Then you got violent crime and gang crime and that activity. In reality, we may have about 11,000 homicides with firearms annually in America when you distill it down to the actual facts, not the bias depending on which side of the issue you're on. So when seeing that, it's like, okay, this means it's a deterrent. This means I'm able to, be in respect of the Second Amendment and the human right to defense. And this means I'm also going to mitigate trauma if we're doing that from a safe and responsible space. So that presents the answer to us very clearly. More and more people own safe and responsible firearms owners, especially in the areas that's left out of the conversation the most, which is urban America. Doing that, we shift that, that dial in a more respectful for freedom direction.
So what are some of the benefits, or really the fruit, that you have seen firsthand from going into urban areas and teaching people how to be responsible with firearms?
Oh, once you put somebody on to something as simple as muzzle discipline, and tell them, it's like a lightsaber. You want to pretend like this muzzle's the lightsaber and you don't want to point it in anything you don't want to cut. That light bulb goes off. When you tell people the basic 4 rules: finger off the trigger, know your target and what's behind it, treat every firearm like it's weapon, every firearm like it's loaded. These are things that stick with people, and then when you start to expose them to the lies that they've been told, or even something as simple as this is actually how a firearm works, that person is now going to be forever in a space where, hey, this is something that is safe. This is something that I have the right to own. This is something that could potentially protect my life. They're no longer going to vote in a direction in opposition to that. So those are some of the things, as well as just straight up like cutting down on, violent crime. So for example, 2016 in Philadelphia, we did most of our classes before we started touring. For that whole entire year, we did most of our classes in Philadelphia. 2017, the statistics came out for Philly. Philly had the lowest violent crime in 2016 that it had since 1979. So, and that's one small step. This is when very early on, before we had fundraised very heavy, we just concentrated on the major issue there being conflict resolution. Because I can't have the conversation with you about a firearm if you on go just with because somebody stepped on your toe. We have to have that conversation about conflict resolution and de-escalation. And so those are one of the areas that we saw big strides in. And pro-gun, anti-gun doesn't matter. No one is saying, hey, we're okay with death and trauma. So even from the conflict resolution angle, we've seen an impact, and we know that it is scalable.
How has the black community responded to Black Guns Matter?
Oh, the hood love us. The hood love us. You know what I'm saying? For the work that we do, fortunately, I'm able to go to any city and get the respect of someone that works very, very hard. Somebody that knows. Before I started doing this, my commitment to my community was already cemented. With that being the case, it's just catapulted. When you have that conversation with someone that knows that you're not going to make them feel silly or attempt to make them feel silly because they don't know as much, funny term, but it's a safe space. And so when you practically, simply explain these things and then put equity in the community, in educating and informing the community, they're going to love you forever. So the response that we get, we don't get pushback. We get love. Our classes, we actually now have to try to keep our classes, like the cap of 100. Some of our classes have had 400 or 500 people. It's a lot more difficult to manage 400 or 500 people. So the response and people giving up. We're completely crowdsourced. GoFundMe.com/Black Guns Matter. People have given us over $250,000 for cities that we may not even been to their city yet. That's saying we appreciate the work. It's very difficult to give hard-working, blue-collar, middle, and lower-class Americans to donate money to something that they don't want. So that's an impact or a litmus, for the impact or the respect that we have in hoods all across America.
You all are not slowing down. You have big plans for the future. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we, again, our first goal was 13 cities after the 13 first colonies and $25,000 raised. Every time we hit a goal, we were like, okay, we did it. And more people were like, no, you have to keep going. I get bombarded every time we reach the benchmark. Our last benchmark of, I think it was $150,000. People were like, you got to go to 200. We got to 200, and we were like, okay, we'll get to 250, and it's done. We got to $250,000, and way too many people messaged and said, you need to make this a $1 million goal. And so we did, and we've, got past the 250,000, 280,000. But now we need to buy a building. We need to buy a flagship location in Philadelphia, and that's what some of the outside of the remaining touring that we're doing as well. But we want to train trainers, to how to engage urban America, because a lot of instructors, they know guns, but they don't know urban America. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know the culture. They don't know the language, and these are things that are fixable. So that's a part of it, as well as just obviously doing the tours, keeping the entry costs free to beginners, as well as we need a building. We need a few buildings. We need a place where people know that they can come, learn very basic, very beginner, again, conflict resolution, de-escalation, firearm safety and storage, as well as first aid training. These are things that need to be available to people in urban America consistently. And that's what a chunk of that, remaining $700 and some odd $1,000 is going to go to. And that's a lofty goal. But, we come from good soil, so we can get it done.
So how can we support you? How can we get involved and learn more?
One, I want everyone to, after they watch this, I want everyone to make sure that they're, if you don't know, you should find out the basic 4 rules of firearm safety. That doesn't cost you anything. The other thing is you should look into your local politicians, wherever you are across the nation, and see what their stance is on the Second Amendment. Because if a politician is telling you shouldn't have the means to defend yourself, but he or she is walking around with armed security, it's the biggest contradiction in the world. So, support politicians that are pro-Second Amendment. And if people want to support us directly, they can get a shirt, or they can just go, donate to the website. If you folks happen to have an extra $700,000 laying around, we can put good use to it. But even if you got $7, really every little bit of this helps. And again, this is completely voluntary. It's not like we're going into your check and taking the money out, and things of that nature. But we're asking people that think that if this is important to urban America, even if you live in rural or suburban America, if those rights are infringed in urban America, it's just a matter of time for rural and suburban America as well. So if you donate, again, GoFundMe.com/Black Guns Matter. $10, $100, $100,000, $1,000,000, whatever. Yeah.
You'll take anything. I love it.
We need it. It all folds.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maj, we really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much just for sharing your heart and your passion and what you're doing to really transform urban communities all across America.
Doubt. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it.
All right, peace.